Tonight, I am telling you about one lonely signal crossing light years, and everyone who hears it is too scared to answer. It's a strange thought, isn't it? You grow up with this quiet belief that if things ever got truly bad, someone somewhere would pick up your call. But imagine living in a time where that trust is broken, where help itself has become a weapon. I've always been fascinated by that tension, kindness versus survival. The moment where answering a cry for help might kill you and ignoring it might kill someone else. It really makes you wonder what kind of person or what kind of fleet still steps forward. So, get cozy and grab a blanket, because this story settles right into that uneasy space, out on a thin, cold world called Dorsa. 4. A colony is burning under raider attack. Their automated message repeats into the dark, calm, polite, almost painfully hopeful. On the other end of the galaxy, most powers log it, study it, and quietly turn away, afraid it's just another elaborate trap. But one tired pattern analyst notices something riding on that signal, and far out in the dark, there's a black fleet with a very specific purpose. They answer the calls no one else will touch, and they assume every cry for help wants them dead. We're going to slip in right as Dorsa 4 sky breaks, and the iron tide begins to move. The night over Dorsa 4 looked broken. From the ground, the stars were cut by fire. Thin orange streaks from falling ships, blue sparks from shields that failed too early, and slow trails of smoke drifting across the thin air. Somewhere above the clouds, raider gunships circled like metal vultures, sealing the sky. Every few seconds, the same calm message went out into the dark. This is Frontier Colony Dorsa 4. We are under attack. Life support compromised. Casualties heavy. Request immediate assistance. Any system. Any flag. The words crossed light years in an instant. No one answered. In this age, a distress call was not just a cry for help. It could be a net. It could be bait. It could be the start of a trap so large that a whole fleet died the moment it tried to be kind. So most powers watched, waited, and did nothing, until a pattern analyst on Earth frowned at his screen, until an admiral known for never trusting anything decided that this silence had lasted long enough. And above that dying world, something vast and black would soon arrive, not with comfort, not with messages of peace, but with a single steady promise. No more easy prey. Dorsa 4 was not a rich world. It was a thin, cold planet with long winters and pale blue daylight. Its people grew algae in tall glass towers and pulled metals from shallow mines that barely paid for their fuel. The air tasted faintly of dust and salt. Still, they called it home. On the night the raiders came, the sky over the largest settlement turned red. Leah Carter stood on the roof of the clinic and watched another cargo tower burn. The flames climbed floor by floor, as if they were being pulled up by an invisible hand. The tower's support beams bent, then snapped. The whole structure slid sideways with a slow, terrible grace. The delayed boom shook the clinic under her feet. Leah winced. That was the food store, she said softly. Behind her, the door banged open. Rafi Cole stumbled out, gas mask crooked on his face, a streak of grease down his neck. He was 20 maybe, with the tired eyes of someone who slept in machine bays and forgot to eat when he was busy. They hit the west grid again, he said, breathing hard. Half the outer lights are dead. People are panicking in the lower levels. We're out of pain blocks in room C. And the broadcast is still on loop. Leah nodded. Good. It has to stay on. Doc, Rafi said. No one's coming. They both looked up. High in the sky, bright dots moved against the stars. Raider ships, fast, ugly things with jagged hulls and uneven engine flares, darted between thin lines of blue plasma fire. Every few seconds, a long lance of energy would stab down toward the ground, cutting through some outbuilding in the distance. The sound arrived later, like far-off thunder. Near the clinic, a speaker mounted on the comms mast repeated the same calm, recorded voice. This is Frontier Colony Dorsa 4. We are under attack. Life support compromised. Casualties heavy. Request immediate assistance. Any system, any flag. Over and over. It had been running for 6 hours. Someone has to hear it, Leah said. We're not that far from the trade routes. Rafi pulled his mask off and wiped his face with the back of his hand. They hear it, he said. They just don't trust it. Leah pressed her lips together. She knew he was right. In the late 26th century, distress calls were dangerous. Rider clans had used them as lures. They would fake an emergency signal from a ship or a colony, wait for a kind or curious fleet to jump in, then hit it from hidden positions. Then came the stranger tricks. Sometimes a distress call carried extra code hidden inside the signal. Like a seed, if it touched a ship's main computer, it could shut off shields, drain weapons, or force a random jump into deep space. Others carried viruses that didn't act for months, waiting to strike until the fleet was far from home. Worst of all were the silent harvests, where a rescue force would answer a signal and never be seen again. No debris, no bodies, only the data patterns they had sent, recorded by far-off listening posts, showing strange energy spikes before going flat. So the big powers changed their rules. Distress calls were no longer answered at once. They were logged, studied, and passed to special teams that tried to see if there was a hidden hand behind them. Behind help, if it came at all, came late. On Dorsa 4, late meant dead. Doc, we should go back down, Rafi said. We've got people stacking up in the halls. Most of them are just scared, but some are burned bad. The scrubbers in the waiting room are failing. Air's going gray. Leah tore her eyes from the burning tower. All right. Go. Triage first. Move anyone with clear lungs up to level 3, away from the smoke. She paused, and, Rafi, restart the oxygen inverters, if you can, even if you have to steal parts from the rover bay. He gave a crooked smile. Stealing parts is my whole skill set, Doc. As they turned to the stairwell, the comms mast clicked. For half a second, the repeating voice cut out. Static hissed across the rooftop speakers. Leah stopped, her hand on the railing. "Did you hear that?" she asked. Raffi frowned. Probably just interference from the plasma hits. "We lost the East Rees relay tower an hour ago." The calm voice came back, same as before. "This is Frontier Colony Dorsa. 4, we are under attack." Leah listened for a beat. Longer. Then forced herself down into the building. The clinic was full. People sat along the halls, back to the walls, masks over their mouths. Children clung to their parents. A woman with a scorched side of her face rocked back and forth, humming under her breath. Every few minutes, someone would look up at the ceiling as dust drifted down from another distant impact. Raffi slipped past stretchers and power carts to the lower level, where the generator stacks throbbed with a low, steady hum. He felt better near machines. Machines made sense. They did what they were told, more or less. He checked the oxygen inverters first. The readouts flickered. Overload warnings glowed orange along the side of the main panel. Come on," he muttered, hands moving fast. "Stay together for me." Just a little longer. A cluster of kids watched from the doorway, wide-eyed. "Are we going to die?" a small boy asked. "Not today," Raffi said without looking back. "Today the machines are still on our side." Above their heads, the distress call kept going out. On Earth, the stars were just dots on a screen. Lieutenant Miguel Reyes sat alone in a dim room, his face lit by a curved wall of displays. Lines of color streaked past, moving too fast for most eyes to follow. To him, they were as simple and familiar as water. Miguel was a signal pattern analyst. His job was to watch every recorded distress call that reached Earth's deep listening net, then mark which ones might be real, which were fake, and which were something stranger. He had been on duty for 10 hours. He was tired. A half-finished cup of synth coffee cooled near his elbow. He had already tagged 3 pirate traps and 1 set of ghost signals that turned out to be a reflection from a pulsar. He almost skipped the next alert. It came in as a simple red icon at the top of his main grid. Frontier Distress /D. How RS. 4/priority LO. The system had already run its first pass. The call did not match any major patterns of known raider clans. It did not contain obvious hidden code. The automatic flags were quiet. Miguel tapped it anyway. The audio played in the small room. "This is Frontier Colony Dorsa. 4, we are under attack. Life support compromised. Casualties heavy. Request immediate assistance. Any system. Any flag." He listened twice. The voice was calm, maybe too calm, but that didn't mean much. Most colonies used standard recorded messages. Less chance of panic breaking through. He pulled up the signal map. Something was off. The call was being sent 3 ways at once. standard radio, tight beam lasers toward known trade routes, and an FTL packet through the JumpCom network. That was normal for a large colony. But the timing was odd. Each burst carried tiny shifts in phase too small to be mistakes, too regular to be noise. He ran a quick pattern check, then another. The shifts did not match any virus or hidden code he knew. They did, however, match something else, the way a signal might look if someone far away was pushing on it, like a hand on a moving swing. Someone, or something, was riding the distress call. Miguel swallowed. He tagged the file with yellow priority and opened a direct line to Central Fleet Analysis. Chief Nora Blake answered. She was older, with silver hair pulled back tight and sharp lines at the corners of her eyes. "Reyes," she said, "you're late in your shift. You better have something real." "I might," he said. "Dorsa. 4 colony. Look at the phase data." He pushed the file to her console. She watched the graph scroll. "Me either. But look here," he highlighted the tiny shifts. "That's not from their local transmitter. That's like something is syncing to it. Just out of our normal band. It's too clean to be noise. Too steady." Nora narrowed her eyes. "You think someone is ghosting the call?" "Feels like it. And the power draw on their end is wrong. The colony is small. They should not be able to push this wide, this hard, for this long under attack. And yet the signal strength hasn't dropped." "Could be a stolen booster from a trader ship," Nora said. "Could be nothing." "Could be," Miguel said. "But look at the timing between bursts. There's a 17-second drift. Then a correction. Then a drift. It's like 2 clocks trying to match." Nora watched a moment longer. Miguel saw the exact instant her instinct lit up. "Who else has eyes on this?" she asked. "Just the auto systems and me," Miguel said. The system tagged it low priority. She straightened. Not anymore. She tapped a command. The status indicator over the Dorsa. 4 alert shifted from red to bright blue. Escalated review. Iron tide channel. Miguel felt his stomach flip. "You're pulling Iron Tide into this?" "We're not pulling them in," Nora said. "We're putting it in their line of sight. There is a difference. And if this is some new kind of trap, I'd rather it hit them than our softer fleets." Miguel nodded slowly. Iron Tide. The name still carried weight, even said quietly, in a back room. The Iron Tide was Earth's Black Fleet. They answered the calls no one else dared to touch. Their ships did not shine. Their captains did not give speeches. They went where signals turned strange, and they made sure that threats did not return. Most people feared them almost as much as they feared the traps. Nora opened a secure link. A new icon appeared on Miguel's main screen. Admiral Elias Mercer, flagship/Iron Tide. She glanced at him. "Stay on the line, Reyes. You saw this first. You might hear something I miss." Miguel adjusted his collar with suddenly clumsy fingers. "Yes, Chief." The link opened. At first, there was only a low hum and the faint background noise of a distant engine. Then, a calm male voice spoke. Mercer, Admiral, Nora said. Chief Blake, Central Fleet Analysis. We have a distress call from Dorsa. 4 that may be under outside influence. I'm sending full data now. Received, Mercer said. Miguel imagined him sitting in a dark command chair, somewhere far out near the rim, surrounded by black hulls and silent crews. The thought sent a shiver down his back. He watched as Mercer's systems pulled the Dorsa, 4 signal apart in real time. New graphs bloomed across their shared display. Phase, power, timing, cross-links to older strange calls that had ended badly. Then Mercer spoke again. That pattern on the carrier tail, he said. We have seen versions of it on 3 missing fleets in the last decade. Different bands. Same hand. Miguel's mouth went dry. So it's not raiders, he said softly, forgetting to mute. Identify yourself, Mercer said, not unkindly. Lieutenant Miguel Reyes, sir. Signal pattern analyst, I flagged the drift. Lieutenant Reyes, Mercer said, your eye just bought you a longer shift. Chief Blake marked Dorsa. 4 as a hostile contact probable. Flag all related net nodes for deep scan. Nora nodded. Done. Admiral, Miguel said. If that pattern's the same as the missing fleets, does that mean Dorsa 4 is bait? Mercer was silent for a moment. There are tests scattered through this galaxy, he said at last, old and new. Some pretend to be friends. Some pretend to be victims. Whoever attached that handprint to this signal believes we will either ignore it or rush in blind. And will we? Nora asked. No, Mercer said. We will walk in with our eyes open. Miguel watched as a new command propagated across the net. IR own tide task forcey prepare. FTL transit / destination. DOR. SO pour. On the other side of the star's Dorsa. Dorsa, 4 burned and called. On Earth, in a small dark room, Miguel Reyes sat very still and listened to the silence between the loops. When help finally came to Dorsa 4, it did not look like help. The night sky above the colony had gone from red to a dirty gray. Smoke from burning farms and power towers hung in thick sheets. The raider ships had grown lazy. They knew no fleet had arrived in hours. They circled higher now, firing less, saving fuel while their ground teams pushed in toward the main settlement. On the roof of the clinic, Raffi and Leah stood side by side again, both masked this time. The air tasted of metal and ash. Far off, a bright trail marked where a raider dropship cut down through the clouds toward the mining quarter. A second trail rose to meet it. Thin, shaky, one of the Colney's last defense rockets. The rocket missed. It spun out and burst in empty air. A flower of orange sparks far from its target. Rafa's shoulders slumped. That was the last of them, he said. Leah didn't answer. She was looking up at something else. Do you see that? She asked quietly. At first, Raffi saw only smoke and scattered stars. Then the stars moved. A thin line of darkness slid across the sky, blocking out starlight in a smooth, straight band. It moved too fast, too clean, and too high to be a cloud. It was like someone had drawn a black scar across the night. Raffi blinked. What is that? The band broke apart into separate shapes. Black ovals, triangles, long, narrow hulls, with no running lights, no bright engine flares, only faint halos of bent starlight at their edges. They snapped into a formation between Dorsa, 4, and the cold blue star that warmed it. Dozens of ships, maybe more, forming a curved wall in high orbit. For a strange moment, they just hung there, silent, still, perfectly aligned. Leah felt the hair on her arms lift. That, she said, is a fleet. Raffi frowned. But where's the high? Before he could finish, every raid ship in the sky seemed to flinch. Far out from the planet, in higher orbit, the Iron Tide had arrived. Admiral Elias Mercer stood on the flag deck of the battleship Obsidian Crown, hands clasped behind his back. The room was dim, lit mainly by the ghostly glow of tactical displays. Floating in the air, around him, quiet officers watched their own stations. No one shouted, no alarms blared. In Iron Tide doctrine, noise was a kind of panic. They did not allow it. FTL transit complete, said Commander Dana Park from the primary station. Her voice was smooth, almost gentle. All ships report green. Position is as plotted. We sit between the colony and the raider force. Mercer nodded once. Time from emergence to local detection? 4.2 seconds. Until their nearest scout picked up our mass shift, she said. 5.1. Until their first sensor ping. They are surprised, sir, but not blind. On the main display, the Dorsa 4 system hung like a model. The blue-white star 4 system hung like a model. The blue-white star, the thin planet with its faint rings of dust and rock, the scattered raider formation in orbit, and closer in, the tight dark arc of the Iron Tide. Mercer studied the enemy. Their ships were crude, just as the data had suggested. Welded plates, uneven drive signatures, weapon mounts that spat plasma in wide, noisy arcs. Dangerous to a helpless colony, yes, but not a match for his task force in a fair fight. He was not here for a fair fight. Hold fire, he said. Tighten formation. No gaps. At once, the black ships adjusted. The wall between the colony and open space became not just a simple line, but a layered shield. Battleships in front, cruisers behind, destroyers ready to dart forward where needed. Their hulls drank in light. Their drives burned in a spectrum hard for simple sensors to read. They did not shine. They simply were. On the far side of the system, a cluster of tiny markers blinked. Raider scouts hiding among the rocks of the asteroid belt, and something else, a thin scatter of sensors too small to be ships. Outer net? Mercer asked. Multiple emissions from the belt. Some are different. Narrow beam, low power, high discipline, not theirs. Mercer's gaze settled on the strange signals. The rider on the distress call? Likely, she said. Take it away from them, Mercer said. Park raised her head slightly. Yes, sir. Drone, Wing 1. Execute sweep glass protocol. Single pulse, no residue. In the launch bay of Obsidian Crown and her sister ships, small black triangles dropped from hidden racks and slid out into space. They did not need bright engines. Their drives were a controlled push, almost invisible. They fanned out toward the belt in a wide arc. The Raider scouts saw them late. On the tactical display, red icons began to jitter and panic. Some Raider captains tried to pull their scouts back from the rocks. Others powered up weapons that were little more than cannons strapped to engine blocks. They never got to fire. Pulse in 3, Park said. 2-1. Far out, the drones lit up, single tight bursts of energy, aimed with inhuman precision. The pulses were not meant to burn through armor. They were tuned to cook sensors, blind cameras, and fry any open communications array. In less than a second, the outer system map changed. Red Scout markers went dark, then faded from the display. The strange, tight beam, signals that had been watching the distress call, flicked off like eyes closing. On the belt, rocks still turned, dust still spun. But whoever had been watching from the dark lost their front row seat. Belt is quiet. Some debris. No chain reactions. Raids on colony surface continue. Enemy main group has turned toward us. Mercer watched as the Raider armada shifted. They were not well drilled, but they were not fools. Dozens of ships began to form into a loose spearhead, pointing straight at the iron tide wall. The Raiders did not send a hail. They did not ask questions. Their forward guns flared to life, spitting hot blue plasma into space. "Do we answer?" Park asked. Mercer shook his head. "Not yet." He let the enemy fire come. On the surface of Dorsa, 4, Raffi flinched as bright streaks appeared overhead. To him, it looked like a storm of falling stars. Long, glowing lines ripped across the sky, aiming not down at the colony now, but sideways, toward the high, narrow shapes that had arrived between them and the void. "They're firing on the new ships," he said. His voice shook. "If those are Raiders too, we're done." Leah shaded her eyes. "Look at the angles," she said. "They're taking the hits." The Raider plasma slammed into the iron tide line. From the ground, the black ships seemed to blur. Faint blue fields snapped into place, catching the incoming fire and bending it aside. Some of the energy turned into harmless light, spilling in pale waves down toward the upper air. The rest slid away into space. None of it reached the colony. Raffi stared. "Why aren't they shooting back?" "Because they don't have to," yet Leah said. High above on Obsidian Crown, the deck felt a distant vibration as shields absorbed the first strike. "Impact across front shield," Park reported. "Minor. Pattern is wide and wasteful." "They're trying to scare us." Mercer's expression did not change. "They are trying to learn us," he said. "They will not get the lesson they want." He glanced at the tactical overlay again. The enemy formation was still ragged. Some ships fired early. Others held back. A few even drifted out of position, wary of being in the front line. Fear and greed pulled them in different directions. "Hold positions," Mercer said. "No forward moves. Keep shields at passive maximum. Log every firing signature. I want to know which cannon is tied, to which ship and which captain pushes which trigger." Park's fingers moved over her console. "Aye, sir," recording all. Minutes crawled by. The raiders grew uneasy. They had expected a rush, a countercharge, at least a warning broadcast. That was how most human fleets reacted. They announced themselves. They made demands. They tried to scare the attackers off before wasting energy. The Iron Tide said nothing. They stood there, a solid, silent barrier, letting the raiders waste shot after shot against unbroken shields, taking careful notes. On the surface, people began to notice. From between two ruined buildings, a group of colonists watched the sky. The fire that had filled it earlier was now pushed to a high ring, where blue and gold sparks played around the black shapes. A child tugged at her father's sleeve. "Dad, it's like they're standing in the way." Raffi, rushing between the clinic and the power stacks, kept glancing up too. He saw how the black ships did not drift, how they did not chase, how they stayed exactly between his burning town and the raider guns, even as those guns shifted and probed for a weakness. He had seen fences fail before. He had never seen a wall like this. "Outer surveillance?" Mercer asked again. "Belt is clean," Park said, "but we are still being watched from somewhere. There's a lagged return pulse on the system's far edge. Very faint. Let it watch," Mercer said. "Right now, I want it to see its tools break." On the main display, the raider commander finally made a choice. A broader wedge of ships left the rest, charging straight at the Iron Tide with drives burning hard. Smaller craft fanned out to flank, trying to find a side path around the dark wall toward the colony. "Here they come," Park said softly. Mercer took a slow breath. "Begin stage 2. Lock all primary batteries, but keep them cold. Prepare drones for net cast. Deploy point defense quietly. And still, no public broadcast." Park glanced up. "Sir, standard doctrine suggests." "Standard doctrine is for standard fights," Mercer said. "Whoever set this stage is watching how we talk as well as how we shoot. Today, we show them less. We give them numbers, not words." Park's eyes warmed with understanding. "Yes, sir." Out in space, the Iron Tide ships adjusted again, almost imperceptibly. Their dark hulls reoriented. Plates slid aside, revealing narrow slits where weapon lenses waited. Swarms of small drones slipped from launch bays, then melted into the shadows cast by the larger ships unseen against the blackness. The raiders came on, engines roaring. On Dorsa 4, people saw a new shape forming above them. A curved black shield, steady and calm, set against a ring of frantic fire. Raffi, standing on the clinic roof with a coil of cable over his shoulder, felt a strange, warm thing flicker in his chest. For the first time since the attack began, he thought, maybe we don't die tonight. The raiders charged like a storm with no plan from the surface of Dorsa 4. The sky looked full of them now, Streaks of harsh white light marked their drives as they dove toward the black wall in orbit. Their plasma guns spat wide arcs of blue and green, wasting power in great sloppy bursts. On the roof of the clinic, Raffi and Leah watched with every other pair of eyes in the settlement. "That's a lot of ships," Raffi said quietly. Leah nodded. "Too many for a normal raid. They were meant to break us fast." She squinted. The dark shapes of the Iron Tide ships did not move much. They shifted only slightly, closing small gaps, thickening the parts of the line that would take the heaviest hits. They still did not answer with a single visible shot. From the ground it looked like a wall waiting for a wave. On the flag deck of Obsidian Crown, Admiral Mercer watched the wave come in. "Range?" he asked. "Front wedge will enter optimal engagement in 20 seconds, Commander Park said. Flankers in 35. Fast fighters are trying to slip under the ecliptic, sir. They want to get below us, closer to the planet." Mercer studied the display. Red icons bloomed as Raider fighters launched from their carriers. Small, aggressive craft with oversized guns and very thin armor. They fanned out in front of the larger ships like angry insects. "Good," he said. "Let them get close." Park gave a tight smile. "Our gunners are eager, sir." "I know," Mercer said. "They will wait." He raised his hand, palm facing forward toward the battle map. "Order to all ships," he said. "Do not fire on capital hulls until my mark. Drones only. Fighters first, then gun mounts. Leave surviving big hulls blind and toothless for now." Park turned to her console. "Fleet, this is Commander Park. You heard the Admiral. Netcast protocol. Drones hot, primaries cold. Point defense on hair trigger. Across the Iron Tide line, quiet signals rippled. In hidden launch racks, more drones woke. They were ugly machines. Black wedges and spheres with no names, only serial numbers. Some held cutting beams. Some carried jamming gear. Others had nothing but sharp edges and hardened shells, built to ram straight into enemy guns. They slipped out from their bays without flares, using short bursts of gas and mag pulse. For a few seconds, they drifted in the shadow of their motherships, invisible. Then the Raiders' fighters crossed an invisible limit. "Now," Mercer said, for the sky seemed to split. For long minutes, there had been only blue Raider plasma streaking across the stars, splashing uselessly against the Iron Tide shields. Now thin, straight lines of white light leapt out from the black ships, so fast they looked almost still. They were not wild beams. They did not swing or sway. Each line snapped on, touched a point, and snapped off. A Raider fighter winked out in mid-path, its hull cut so cleanly that the pieces did not even flare. Another's engine slice turned into a brief sunburst as loose plasma lost containment. A third simply folded inward as a drone tore through its cockpit and then burned its fuel core on the way out. To the colonists below, it looked like stars being punched out of the sky. Raffi grabbed the railing with both hands. "They're not even missing," he said. Leah watched, her doctor's mind still working even as fear and awe fought in her chest. They knew the fighter formations before they launched, she said. Look, see how the beams are hitting not just the front line, but the ones behind. They knew how these raiders fight. Above them, the first wave of raider fighters died in less than 10 seconds. Fighters Green is at 60% loss and falling, Park reported. They're still pushing, but confusion is rising. They can't tell what's killing them. Keep our larger signatures masked, Mercer said. Let them shoot at ghosts while their teeth are pulled. He watched as Iron Tide drones moved through the raider formation, like wolves through a herd. Some slipped under fighter wings and fired sharp, narrow beams into weapon joints, melting simple firing rails. Others flared bright with jamming static, making radar targeting systems see dozens of false enemies in every direction. A few drones were sacrificed on purpose, ramming into the noses of heavy fighters and clamping on before self-destructing. The blasts were small, carefully shaped to ruin engines and warp frames without throwing dangerous shrapnel toward the planet below. Mind field effect taking hold, Park said. Radar comms showed distress. Multiple captains shouting over each other, no unified command voice yet. Mercer nodded. Good. Confusion is a weapon. Keep them talking to themselves. They still had not fired a single main ship gun. On the Raider flagship, a broad, ugly carrier ship with patched plates and a hungry drive. The local commander screamed, "What are they doing?" "They're just sitting there," he yelled, slamming a fist into the side of a console. Hit them, his crew tried. They poured more plasma into the Iron Tide shield wall. They sent coded orders to regroup, to stop panicking, to push forward or pull back. But the orders piled up on half-broken comm nets, tangled with fear and static from the jamming drones. By the time the flagship commander realized half his fighter wings were gone, the next phase had already started. "Begin gun removal," Mercer said. At Park's signal, a new set of drones surged forward. These were slower, heavier machines. They carried sharp, tight beams that did not even show on normal scopes. Their sole task was to cut out the eyes and claws of the bigger raider. Hulls on the tactical map, they moved in careful arcs, each one targeting a single weapon, mount, or sensor head. A raider destroyer spun to track them with its main spinal gun. Before it could fire, 3 drones marked its firing lens and shot together. The gun's mouth turned white, then dark, as the glassy surface boiled and cracked. A small, focused explosion popped inside the barrel, snapping the mount from its base. Another drone crawled along the side of a cruiser, out of sight of the main bridge. It reached a cluster of sensor dishes, then fired a short, precise pulse. The dishes drooped as if suddenly tired, their feet going flat. Within a minute, dozens of raider ships were still physically intact, but blind, teeth snapping at empty space. Capitals now show major weapon loss, Park said. Forward arcs down by at least 50% across the board. Rear guns mostly untouched. They did not expect to defend their backs. They will turn to run, Mercer said. Let them try. On Dorsa 4, the battle still looked like a strange storm. But the shape of it was changing. At first, the raider ships had seemed to surge forward with power. Now their movements grew jerky. Some turned away from the iron-tide wall entirely. Others tried to shift back into old positions, only to find their own crippled craft drifting in the way. The colors changed too. Blue plasma lines thinned, then broke. Instead, small, sharp flashes dotted the sky where drones did their silent work. Leah lowered her mask for a moment to wipe sweat from her lips. Her eyes never left the fight. They're taking them apart, she said. Not just blowing them up, taking them apart piece by piece. Raffi nodded slowly. It's like watching me break down a broken generator. Strip the power lines first, then the safety locks, then the frame. Leah glanced sideways at him. Except here. The generator wants to kill you. That's why you start with the teeth, Raffi said. Above them, a whole raider cruiser went dark. Its lights blinked out. Its guns fell still. It drifted, turning slowly, helpless as a dead fish in a current. No iron-tide ship spared a shot to finish it. They marked it and moved on. Inside Obsidian Crown, the calm did not break. Enemy morale? Mercer asked. Park checked the feed from their comm intercepts. Multiple distress calls now, sir. Raiders calling to each other, begging for orders. Some are calling for retreat. Some are threatening their own crews to keep them on target. They have no clear net control. Good, Mercer said. Keep recording. Every word goes to analysis later. For now, he let the sentence hang as he watched a new pattern form. A cluster of raider ships, still with working drives and some guns, began to pull away from the main mess, burning hard for open space. They were not heading for the asteroid belt. They were heading for the far side of the system, where, on earlier scans, that faint return pulse had come from. Someone had given them that fallback point before the raid began. Mark that group, Mercer said. They are our live bait. No one kills them yet. Park nodded sharply. Marked, sir. On the ground, those fleeing ships just looked like more chaos. To Mercer, they were the first clear trail leading back toward whoever had really set this raid in motion. Still, he could not allow any retreat that might loop back on the planet. Begin pressure from the flanks, he said. But keep the center closed. Nothing gets past us down toward the colony. Nothing gets out without us watching. Iron-tide destroyers on the edges of the line slid forward a little, like black blades, extending just enough to poke. Their smaller guns, still cold until now, flicked on and fired in short, careful bursts. They did not aim for hull centers. They aimed for engines, rudders, and spin stabilizers. A raider frigate that had almost cleared the deadly zone took 3 quick hits to the back of its engine cone. Its drive flared white, lost shape, then died. The ship began to tumble, momentum carrying it on a long, slow arc that would never take it where its captain had hoped to go. Engine kills only, Park reminded her gunners on a private channel. Let them drift. We are not a revenge fleet. We are a control fleet. Not all raiders broke. Some, either too stubborn or too trapped, kept pushing in, desperate to reach the colony. A half-dozen heavy raider ships made a last mad dash, straight for the center of the iron tide arc, hoping to punch a hole by sheer force. Mercer watched them come, then finally lowered his hand. "Main batteries," he said. "You may speak." Across the iron tide line, hidden panels on battleship hulls slid open, showing the black mouths of high-energy cannons. Focus rings spun, finding exact distances. "Targets marked," Park said. "Crossfire locked. On your command, sir." Mercer's eyes were flat and calm. Single volley. No second chances. Fire. The sky above Dorsa, 4 lit up like day. From the ground, people saw lines of white light so bright they hurt to look at. They did not flash and fade. They appeared and were done in the same instant. The 6 charging raider heavies vanished, not in messy explosions, not in long, drawn-out deaths. They turned into expanding balls of gas and glitter in less than a second. The shots were so focused that most of the debris went out to the sides and up, not down. Only faint dust sparks drifted toward the planet. In the clinic hallway, a child cried out at the sudden glare from the small upper windows. People flinched, then stared as the light faded. On the roof, Raffi swallowed hard. "Mercy," he said. "They just erased them." Leah's hand shook. She squeezed the railing until her knuckles hurt. "They warned them with their silence," she said. They still chose to charge. Back on Obsidian Crown, no one cheered. "Primary volley complete," Park said quietly. 6 enemy capitals removed. No fragments on collision course with the colony. Minor particle drift only. Front center is clear. "Good work," Mercer said. "Remind all captains. No more heavy shots without my direct order. We go back to cutting." He looked at the shrinking raider force. Most ships were drifting now, dead, blind, or surrendering by default as their drives stuttered out. A few still tried to run, but the net was around them. "Open point broadcasts," he said. Park raised an eyebrow. "To them, sir?" "To our own drones," Mercer said. "New instruction. Any enemy hull that goes totally dark and cold, no life signs, no power core, can be broken for scrap. Anything with a live heart stays intact until we know who was watching through it." Park relayed the order. Out in space, drones adjusted their paths. Some began carving up truly dead hulks, pushing twisted metal into safer drift paths away from Dorsa. 4 others clung to half-dead ships, waiting, quiet, ready to burn or cut if needed. The raiders were no longer a threat. Now they were evidence. On Dorsa, 4, the sky slowly changed from war to strange beauty. The wild plasma lines stopped. The bright, straight beams from the iron tide faded. What remained were soft glows of cooling wrecks, tiny sparks of drones at work, and the solid, dark curve of the fleet holding their place. Raffi realized he was shaking only when he tried to move, and his knees almost buckled. Leah grabbed his arm. Easy," she said. breathe. He laughed once. A short, broken sound. I forgot how. They stood in silence for a while, just looking up. Around them, the colony had gone oddly quiet too. The constant sound of distant impacts had stopped. No new towers were falling. No new alarms were sounding from the outer districts. Somewhere below, someone started crying out of sheer relief. Somewhere else, someone laughed a little too loudly. The noise rolled through the narrow streets, not quite joy, not quite grief, but something in between. On the clinic roof, Leah finally let herself believe it. Raffi nodded, eyes still on the iron-tide line. They did it. Leah's medical mind snapped back into work mode. A second later, we don't know how many more people made it. She said, "Come on, the worst burns will start to show now that the hits have stopped. And if systems are stabilizing, we might be able to move some of the critical cases to safer levels." They headed for the stairwell. At the door, Raffi paused and looked up. One more time, the black ships had not moved. They still sat between Dorsa, 4 and the rest of the galaxy, a wall that did not trust anything on either side. Raffi felt a tug in his chest, a mix of gratitude and fear. "These are the good guys?" he asked softly. Leah glanced back. They answered. She said, "That's enough for me tonight." On Obsidian Crown, Mercer gave his next order with the same calm tone he had used for all the others. "Commander Park," he said, "start life sign sweeps on all disabled enemy hulls. Mark any that carry non-human readings. I want special teams ready for boarding, but we do not step onto a single ship until we know who is watching from the dark." "Yes, sir," Park said. "And the colony?" Mercer shifted his gaze to the blue-green ball of Dorsa. 4 on the main screen. Fires still burned on its night side. Thin lines showed failing power grids and struggling air scrubbers in the densest settlements. "Settlements begin full spectrum scan," he said. "Radiation levels, structural damage, atmosphere quality. Prioritize hospitals, life support plants, and water treatment. When we speak to them, I want to offer real help, not just kind words." Park hesitated, "Sir. We have not yet spoken to them at all." "I know," Mercer said. "They have lived through a long night, calling to an empty sky. The first voice they hear from us will matter." He paused. "But we still have eyes hiding somewhere on the edge of this system. Until we find them, we stay who we are to that watcher." A silent wall with sharp teeth. Park's mouth twitched in a tiny, fierce smile. Understood. The controlled dismantling of the raid was nearly complete now. The last raider shots had been fired minutes ago. No ship that still moved did so without iron-tide permission. On the far side of the system, that faint, strange pulse still blinked. Slow and steady. Whoever had tied their hand to Dorsa Force distress call had just watched their toolkit come apart under quiet, precise hands. "Signal analysis," he said, "into the air, knowing the right officers would hear no matter where they sat. Angle, timing, any drift. If this was a test, I intend to mark the gratter." In his mind, he could almost feel the gaze from the dark beyond the rim. To that hidden watcher, this battle would not look heroic or kind. It would look cold, methodical, and absolute. Mercer was fine with that. Heroes made mistakes to save face. Walls did not. Below, on a battered world that had nearly given up hope, survivors began to leave their shelters and move into the smoky streets, looking up at the night that had tried to kill them and seeing, for the first time, that someone had stood in the way and not fallen. For Rafi, for Leah, and for thousands of others. The storm in the sky had turned into a slow, steady shield. They did not yet know about the eyes in the dark, beyond their star. They only knew this. Their call had finally been answered. And whoever had set the trap had just learned that the next move would not be theirs alone. The day after the battle, Dorsa 4 felt like a place between worlds. The raiders were gone, or drifting dead in orbit. Fires still burned in broken districts, but they were small now, held back by fire, foam, and hard work. The sky was no longer full of falling ships. Instead, black shapes of the iron tide floated far above, still and patient. From the ground they looked like a second darker ring of moons. Inside the clinic, the air smelled of disinfectant, smoke, and tired people. Dr. Leah Carter moved from stretcher to stretcher, checking bandages and oxygen masks. Her eyes were red, her hands were steady. If the swelling holds down, we won't have to take it. He gave a weak smile. I'll dance for you someday, Doc. You'd better, she said. In the hallway, Rafi worked on a different kind of patient. He sat cross-legged on the floor, with a cracked air scrubber tank laid open in front of him, wires curled out like veins. He held a solder tool in his teeth while his hands twisted a new filter panel into place. A little girl watched from the doorway, clutching a torn blanket. "Are the bad ships coming back?" she asked. Rafi shook his head and took the tool from his mouth. "Not today," he said. "See those black ships up there? They're still between us and everything else." The girl looked up at the ceiling as if she could see through it. "They don't talk," she said. "Why don't they talk?" Rafi did not know the answer. He was wondering the same thing. Since the battle ended, no message had come down from the iron tide. No voice on the colony channels, from the bindy channels. No orders, no promises, just a silent wall in the sky. Leah stepped into the hall and rested a hand on the girl's shoulder. "Go sit with your mom in room B," she said gently. "We'll come check on you soon." When the child had gone, Leah leaned against the wall beside Rafi. "You'd think they'd say something," she said quietly. "Even just 'don't worry, we're here.'" Rafi tightened the last bolt on the scrubber. "Maybe they're shy," he said dryly. Leah snorted. "Anyone who can do that to a raider fleet is not shy." They fell silent. Both of them felt the same nervous prickling in their stomachs. The colony had been saved. That much was clear. What was not clear was what came next. Far above, on Obsidian Crown, Admiral Elias Mercer had not slept. The flag deck was dim, The main display showed Dorsa, foreturning slowly, thin clouds brushing its battered surface. Around the edges of the screen, broken raider ships marked with soft yellow outlines drifted in, holding paths. Drones sat on some of them like perched birds. Commander Dana Park stood at her station, shoulders straight, eyes alert despite the long hours. Colony life support is holding, she reported. Their main reactor took only glancing damage. Water processing is strained, but stable. Medical centers are overloaded, but functional. Radiation? Mercer asked. Within safe limits, even in the worst-hit districts, she said. Our shots were clean. Debris fields are high and spreading outward. Mercer gave a small nod. Good. We did not save them just to poison them. A soft tone sounded from the communication pit. Admiral and officer said, "Signal analysis is ready with the outer system report." "Put him through," Mercer said. Miguel Reyes appeared as a small, flat image on a side display. He looked tired too, with dark circles under his eyes and a mess of data feeds behind him. "Sir," he said, "we've been tracking that faint pulse at the edge of the system. It's not just a stray signal. It's a structured return, like a radar ping but smarter." "Direction?" Mercer asked. "Coming from about 20 astronomical units out," Miguel said. "Above the system plane. If this were an old-style solar system, it would be well past any gas giants." Deep dark. Park frowned. "We scanned out there when we came in. Nothing big enough to see." Miguel shook his head. "You wouldn't. The station is cloaked." "Very well. We almost missed it. The only reason we caught it at all is because it's using the same signature we saw riding the distress call." He tapped a control. A new diagram appeared. The Dorsa, 4-star, its thin belt of rocks, the planet close in, and then, far above the system plane, a tiny ring marked in red. "That's your watcher," Miguel said. "It's big, but it's hiding in a way that bends most scans around it. We had to reconstruct its presence from tiny gaps and background noise, like seeing a shape by the way starlight bends." Mercer studied the red ring. "You're sure it's there?" "Yes, sir," Miguel said, "and it's been feeding on data. It took in the full distress call, the radar comms, the energy patterns from your fight. Then it sent out a long FTL burst. Just a few minutes ago, we caught the edge of it, leaving the system." Park's hands tightened on her console. "So whoever it works for already has what they wanted." "Not everything?" Mercer said. "Not yet." He straightened. "Commander Park," he said, "prep a recon group, 3 destroyers, full drone wing stealth systems to maximum. We go to meet our watcher." Park's eyebrows rose. "Sir, the colony stays covered," Mercer said. "The main line remains where it is, until we know for certain this station is not tied to a second threat. If we chase the hand and leave the throat exposed, we deserve what we get." Park nodded. "Yes, sir. I'll have a squadron ready within 15 minutes. Sir, with respect, This station is older than anything the raiders have. Much older. The energy pattern on its cloak matches some of the ghost sights we've picked up near the rim. Merker's eyes narrowed. You think this is the same builder? On the D, Miguel nodded. I do. Good, Mercer said. Then we stop guessing and start asking questions. He cut the line. On Dorsa 4, the questions were smaller. Do we have enough antibiotics? Can we clear the east road before nightfall? Where are we going to put the people whose homes collapsed? Leah answered what she could and wrote lists for what she could not. Raffi moved from broken system to broken system, patching what he could and marking what needed parts he did not have. By late afternoon, the thin blue daylight washed everything in a tired glow. Ash drifted like gray snow. The fires were mostly out now, leaving black scars on the ground. Leah stepped outside the clinic for the first real time that day. Her shoulders ached. Her head pounded. She looked up at the black ring of ships in the sky. Talk to us, she muttered. As if it had heard. Her comm bracelet buzzed. She jumped, then fumbled to tap it. Dr. Carter, a voice said. It was clear, calm, and strange in her ear. After so many hours of only hearing, crying, and shouting, this is Commander Dana Park of the Iron Tide Fleet. Do I have the correct channel? Leah's knees almost gave out. She grabbed the doorframe. Yes, she said. Yes. This is Leah Carter, medical lead, Central Settlement. We? She stopped before she could start babbling. Park's voice stayed even. We have been scanning your world since we arrived, she said. We now have a clear picture of your damage. We can provide atmospheric scrubbers, medical supplies, repair drones, and food stores enough for 3 months. But before we begin, we need to confirm your main needs. Can you speak now? Leah closed her eyes. Yes, she said. Yes, I can. Good, Park said. Understand that we will remain in high orbit while we assist. For the moment, no Iron Tide crew will land. That is not a judgment on you. It is our doctrine. Leah frowned. Doctrine. In simple terms, Park said, we assume any distress event might still be part of a larger trap. That means we limit how much of ourselves we expose until we are sure who said it. You are safe behind us. But we are not safe yet. Leah looked out over the damaged town. People moved like ghosts between broken walls. I believe you, she said. What do you need from us? For now, information, Park said. We will send drones down with supplies. They will also carry sensors. We need you to place them in certain positions, near your main comm towers, in your hospitals, and at your power core. They will help us watch for any strange follow-up signals. Leah swallowed. Like the one that rode our distress call, there was a short pause on the line. You are aware of that? Park asked. Not the full picture, Leah said, but am not stupid. Someone boosted our call. Someone made sure you'd see it. You were not the bait, Park said. You were the subject. Leah's hand shook. That doesn't make me feel better. It shouldn't, Park said. Her tone softened a little. But you are alive. That part, at least, they did not plan on. High above, 3 iron-tide destroyers slid away from the main line like silent knives. They angled up, out of the normal planet plane, drives burning cold, and controlled drones flew ahead of them. Thin shadows against the light of distant stars. Cloak integrity, Mercer asked. Strong, Park said from her seat beside him, now wearing a light harness as the ship changed course. Our signatures are below most known detection levels. If the station is like the others we've suspected, it will feel us before it sees us. But that might be enough. Good, Mercer said. I'd rather meet it awake than catch it later with its eyes closed on us. As they climbed toward the system's upper dark, the light from Dorsa 4's star faded. The displays adjusted, showing less of the planet and more of the cold emptiness ahead. Miguel's red ring on the earlier diagram now had a real target, a patch of visually empty space where the background starlight bent in a way it should not. Range to anomaly? Mercer asked. Closing drones ahead. Mercer said, minimal emissions. I want a full 3D picture before we cross any line it might consider its border. The recon drones surged forward. They sent back data, not as simple images but as fields of numbers, gravity shifts, particle counts, tiny changes in light. Slowly, a shape formed on the main display. It was huge, larger than Obsidian Crown by many times. A ring or wheel, tilted at a strange angle compared to the system plane, with spokes leading inward to a wide central hub. No lights showed. Row molds showed. No windows. Just a dark outline against a field of false emptiness. Around it, space itself seemed to bend, as if the station sat at the center of a quiet whirlpool that pulled scans aside. Park drew in a breath. Cloaked station confirmed, she said. Material density unknown. Energy output masked. There's a kind of field around it, sir. Not like any shield I've seen. It's not blocking, it's sliding things away. Front door, Mercer asked. Park highlighted a section of the ring. There, she said, a low gap in the cloak field. It's like a slit. I think it's the main comm and traffic point. If it has a place for words, that's it. Bring us to just outside. That gap, Mercer said. Not a meter closer. All guns cold, all shields warm. No drones cross that line. Unless I say so. The destroyers glided into position. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without any visible flash or flare, a calm, clear voice filled the flag deck. You have arrived, it said. Well done. The voice was not like a normal radio crackle. It sounded as if it were speaking directly in the air of the room, smooth and toneless. Male? Female? It was hard to tell. It felt old, not in the sense of age, but in the sense of something that had used many voices before. Park stiffened. Source. Source. Everywhere. An officer said, fingers flying over controls. It's inside our local space. No pinpoint. Mercer stood very still. This is Admiral Elias Mercer of the Iron Tide Fleet, he said. Identify yourself. There was a faint pause, as if the speaker were considering how much amusement. To show, you may call me Warden Architect Kale Var, the voice said. I measure responses. I design tests. You have just passed a small one. Mercer's jaw tightened. You built this raid. I arranged the conditions. Kale Var said. The raid itself was carried out by your own kind, using tools your kind built. That was part of the test. We needed to see how you treat threats that look like you. Park's eyes flashed. You killed thousands of civilians. She said. We risked thousands, Kale Var corrected calmly. The difference lies in your answer. You saved more than we predicted. That is of interest. Mercer spoke before Park could. You have been doing this a long time, he said. It was not a question. Your galaxy is full of noise. Most young species burn themselves before they can cross the quiet between stars. The few that learn to travel must be measured. We test reach, we test control, we test mercy and ruthlessness. And if we had failed, Mercer asked, then this system would have become another data point. Kale Var said, a dead colony, a raider force reduced by its own greed. A note for the next species that passes this way. Park shook her head in disgust. You talk like we're lab animals. You are, Kale Var said simply. As are we, in our own time, as were those who came before us. The galaxy is a chain of tests. Those who survive burn the right to set the next ones. Mercer's eyes stayed on the dark shape of the station on the display. And now, he asked, we passed your small test. What grade did we earn? You responded with speed and caution, Kale Var said. You did not rush in, blind. You did not ignore the call. You did not broadcast your intentions. You used controlled force. You left some enemy units intact for study. That shows potential. The word sounded like a hand patting a dog. But Kale Var went on. You still think in local terms. You still see a raid as a battle, not as a data transfer. You do not yet understand the scale at which the real tests are set. Explain, Mercer said. Not yet, Kale Var said. You are not ready. Our task was to see if you are worth a larger stage. The answer is yes. Barely. Park couldn't hold back. You expect us to let you keep doing this? She demanded. To more colonies? To more people? I do not expect anything, Kale Var said. Expectation is a poor habit. I measure, I observe, I move on. Next time, your kind will face pressure that does not look like you. You will not be enough in your current form. What does that mean? Mercer asked. It means you must change, or you will break, Kale Var said. Expand your sight. Harden your walls. Sharpen your minds, or be dust in someone else's report. Mercer's hands curled behind his back. You made a mistake, he said quietly. The station's field seemed to hum just for a second. Oh, Calvar said. And what mistake is that? You assumed we would stay in your role, Mercer said. Subjects, lab animals. You forgot that once a subject sees the shape of the experiment, it can reach for the controls. Calvar laughed. It was not a kind sound. You will hunt us? He asked. Little Wall, you are not the first to say that. You will not be the last. Most who try vanish into their own tricks. Most walls wait, Mercer said. This wall moves. He made a small cutting motion with 2 fingers. Drones that had been hanging back in the shadows suddenly burned bright. They launched narrow, fast pulses against the edge of the station's cloak field, not trying to break it, but to mark its exact shape. Data flooded in. Park's team grabbed it, shoved it into buffers, wrapped it in hardened packages, and sent it backward through secure FTL channels toward Earth and Central. Calvar's tone cooled. Rude, he said, but expected. You are not the first child to try to pull at my clothes. We're not pulling, Mercer said. We're learning your outline. That's the last gift you get from this test. He lifted his chin slightly. From this point on, he said, every distress call that carries your handprint is not just a plea or a trap. It is a target. You taught us to think in larger terms. We will apply the lesson. There was a longer pause this time. You are amusing, Calvar, said, dangerous for your age. That is pleasing. You think this is a game, Park said. A very large, very slow game. You have survived your first small round. Take pride in that. Few do. But do not fool yourself, Admiral. Next time your caution, your walls, your sharp little drones, they will not be enough. Mercer's eyes were as cold as the dark around them. Next time, he said, you will not be the only side setting the rules. For the first time, the station's outline flickered on the display. The cloak field rippled. The ring shape blurred, then sharpened, then blurred again. Gravity readings spiked and fell. Has moving? Park said. Energy surge across the whole structure. Build up fast. Record everything, Mercer said calmly. Angle, spectrum, phase. I want to know exactly how he leaves, so we can see it again in other skies. The dark shape twisted to the naked eye. There was nothing but a faint shimmer. To the Iron Tide's instruments, it was like watching a stone drop through the surface of a deep pool. The station bent space around itself, folded its own shadow, and was gone. The cloak field snapped shut as it vanished, leaving only normal, empty dark behind. Sensors went wild for a second, then steadied. Station has left the system, Park said. We have no trail, but we have the jump signature. We can match it if it shows again. Mercer let out a slow breath. Good, he said. Then this was not just their test. He turned his gaze back to the planet below. On Dorsa 4, nothing seemed different. The same ash drifted. The same people limped through damaged streets. The same black ships hung above, steady and strange. Leah finished her first full round of the clinic and finally let herself sit down. Raffi sank onto the floor beside her, back to the wall, legs stretched out. A low hum rolled through the air. They both looked up. Small dark shapes dropped from the sky, iron-tide drones, this time heading down instead of up. They fell with long, controlled arcs, then slowed as they neared the ground. One landed in the street outside the clinic with a soft thump. It was a smooth black oval about as long as Raffi was tall. Panels slid aside and neat stacks of sealed crates pushed out. Medical symbols, water filters, nutrient packs, replacement parts. A small projector on the drone side lit up. Commander Park's face appeared. A simple, clear image floating above the crate. "This is Commander Dana Park," the recording said. "Dorsa. For Colony, you are under iron tide protection. We will maintain orbit until we are sure no further threat is aimed at you. Supplies will be delivered as needed. We will not land without invitation and full risk check. You are not alone, but you are not under our boots." Leah felt her throat tighten. Raffi looked at the crates, then at the sky. "Not under their boots," he said. Leah stood and walked out to the drone. She laid a hand on its smooth hull. "Thank you," she said softly, even though she knew the machine could not feel it. "Whoever you are up there, on Obsidian Crown's flag deck." Mercer watched similar scenes unfold in other parts of the colony. Drones landing, supplies delivered, colonists reaching out with hope and caution. In equal measure, Park came to stand beside him. "The station is gone," she said. "For now." Mercer nodded. "But its kind is not." She folded her arms. "Do you think Kael'var was right? That next time we won't be enough?" "Yes," Mercer said. "If we stay as we are." "And if we change?" she asked. "Then the test changes too." Mercer said, "That is how their game works." Park was quiet for a moment. "So what do we do?" "We do not wait," Mercer said. "We send the data back. We build counters to that cloak. We train crews to watch for that jump signature. We adjust how we treat distress calls that carry that phase pattern. We hunt in our way." Park's lips quirked. "The iron tide as hunters," she said. "Some people will not like that. Some people didn't like us answering dark calls either," Mercer said. "They liked what happened to Dorsa for even less. We are past the point of simple choices." He tapped a control on a side screen. A fresh distress alert appeared. It came from far beyond Dorsa, past the thin spiral region, out near the faint marks of the rim, where maps grew patchy and strange notes filled the margins. The text was short. "Unconned, feels deep. Rim, life support. Failing, hostile contact bull, unknown under it," in tiny flashing letters. A new tag hung. "Possible handprint, match // Kaya Vi Paturity." Park saw it and let out a low breath. "Already," she said. "The galaxy does not rest for us," Mercer said, "and we do not rest for it." He opened a channel. "Central Command," he said. "This is Admiral Elias Mercer, Iron-Tide Flagship Obsidian Crown. We have confirmed contact with a cloaked station under the control of an entity calling itself Warden Architect KLVAR. Data on its field, jump signature, and behavior is en route. Recommend immediate formation of a dedicated analysis group." He paused, and he added, "Be advised. We are no longer only answering distress calls. We are tracing them back." He cut the line and turned to Park. "Signal the fleet," he said. "Once Dorsa 4 is stable and a relief group arrives, we move. That new call is not just a cry for help. It's the next move in this game. We are going to be there, not as subjects but as players." Park smiled, tired and fierce. "Yes, sir. Iron-Tide will be ready." On Dorsa 4 night fell again. This time, the sky was calm. The scars of the battle glowed faintly with cooling metal, but no new fire streaked the dark. Raffi lay on the clinic roof, arms behind his head, staring up. Leah sat beside him, knees drawn up, a blanket around her shoulders. "Do you think they'll stay?" Raffi asked. "Not forever," Leah said. "They're a fleet, not a wall around just us." Raffi squinted at the stars. Leah followed his gaze. The thin spiral of their region led out toward the black where maps had gaps and warnings. "Somewhere someone is calling," she said. "Or somewhere someone thinks they're setting another test." Raffi was quiet for a long time. At least he said at last, "Whoever is out there knows now that if they poke us, we poke back." Leah smiled faintly, not very poetic. "I fix machines," he said, "not poems." Above them, the black ships of the Iron-Tide held their place a little longer, watching the colony heal, watching the empty patch of space where the hidden station had been, watching the distant stars where the next signal waited. In a galaxy full of traps and tests, a new kind of message had gone out. Not as words, not as music, but as pattern, force, and choice. Humans would answer distress calls. They would not be easy prey. And somewhere in the deep dark beyond the rim, as another faint, strange call pulsed into the void, a hidden mind that had once measured only others now had to mark a new line in its own report. Subject, humanity. Status, no longer passive.